Alright, so I've been playing Classic WoW now for about 10 to 12 hours per day since the launch of the game non-stop. I have cleared MC, I have cleared Onyxia. You can check out my live stream somewhere here on the screen if you're interested in following me there. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of the mistakes that I made rushing to 60, some of the mistakes that you might be making while rushing to 60, and essentially, is it even worth it to rush to 60? We're going to break down all of that in today's video. So here is my level 60 Warlock. I am currently 3 out of 8 tier 1 from MC, and I also have my pants from Ragnaros, my Nemesis pants. Right off the bat, you should have rolled a mage because that was my biggest mistake out of all the mistakes that I made. Okay, that's a little bit of a joke. You obviously do not have to play a mage. Everyone is playing a mage right now. It's all the rage because they're great in AoE farming. They're great in this dungeon farm meta. So it was a joke there. My first and foremost tip, and one of the mistakes that I really made along the way, which is kind of relevant to mages, is dungeon spamming, dungeon farming. In regards to that, dungeon farming for me was completely not worth it. I dungeon farmed or dungeon spammed, meaning I did almost no quests all the way from level 12 to all the way to level 60. And when I hit 60 through doing that, first of all, the entire journey sucked. But when I hit 60, I wanted nothing to do with dungeons. And guess what you have to do to get a lot of your gear is dungeons. Dungeons, in my opinion, should be something that will help you fill the gaps in your quest voids. If you feel like, hey, I'm out of quests, where do I go next? You can go to a dungeon and get a free level off doing one of the various dungeons that are available to you. But if you're solely spamming the same dungeons, although it's more consistent experience for new players, although it might be a little bit easier for new players because everything's kind of mapped out for you and there's dungeons for you at every level bracket, it makes it extremely bland. And I watched a lot of my friends follow things like Joanna's guide. I watched a lot of my personal friends do questing along the way, and yes, it was probably a little bit slower in terms of XP per hour, but they got to experience a lot of the world. They got all of their flight paths. They were able to work on their professions, which I'll get to a little bit later. You always have a healer with you, and your rotation is like usually one AoE button. Maybe it's Hellfire if you're a Warlock. Maybe it's Blizzard if you're a mage. But when you are in the open world, you do learn a lot of lessons about how to survive in the open world, how to take on multiple mobs by yourself without a healer. I think it's very important there. And ultimately, it's just way more fun. So at the cost of leveling a little bit slower, you get to experience a good portion of the game, which a lot of the game is leveling. And it makes it, even though it's already a grueling experience, but it's rewarding in the same way, it makes it a lot better and a lot more enjoyable than just spamming the same dungeon over and over and over again. Now, moving on to tip number 2, which I mentioned earlier, professions. Professions are extremely important in Classic WoW, and as somebody who's just kept up with World of Warcraft and every expansion, who's played every modern version and stuck to that and never really went back, professions is something that I'm not really used to. I'm not very used to like farming out my professions. I mean, professions mean nothing in modern versions of World of Warcraft, whereas in this game they're very important. But if you are dungeon spamming especially, you are not going to have the opportunity to farm out a lot of your professions. A lot of them require you to be in the open world, whether it be mining, whether it be herbalism. There might be some dungeons that do have some mining ores in there, or maybe some herbs lying around, but you're not going to keep up with it at the required pace. There's going to be a lot of people that are in that dungeon that might have a similar profession, or there's just not enough ores or mining nodes or herbs lying around or whatever available to you when compared to the open world. If you're in the open world questing, you should take advantage of leveling up your professions. I know a lot of people will tell you that professions slow you down, but you can at least grab things like herbalism or skinning to make some gold along the way so you can afford your mount. The game will offer a path to you to level up your professions because each time you go into a new zone, the mobs that you're skinning get higher, the cloth that you're acquiring gets higher, right? You go from wool to mage weave, whatever. It's going to naturally progress as you level up, and you don't go back when you're at level 60 because that will take up an exorbitant amount of time. And if you're doing it while leveling, it might slow you down by 10%. So if you have 10 days playtime and it takes you that long to reach level 60, maybe one day of that is working on your professions and making sure that they're going to be caught up to when you hit level 60. And I'll give you a personal example of somebody who just spammed dungeons. If you look at my enchanting, which was the only thing I worked on along the way, it's at 214 out of 225. It could be actually a little bit higher. I have a lot of mats in my bank, but because I was only spamming dungeons, I thought this one would be pretty easy to level up. But as a result, a lot of my group mates fed me greens along the way, and you probably wouldn't be able to do this unless you were losing out on a ton of gold if they weren't willing to feed you the greens. So making sure that you're keeping up with your first aid and all of your professions along the way, once again, is extremely important. I highly recommend you do so before hitting level 60. Now, tip number 3 might be a little bit controversial to some, but if you're open to using them, I think they're a great tool if you are trying to level fast, but also explore a ton of the game. Add-ons. Add-ons like Titan Plate, I think, are pretty huge, at least in my opinion, because it will monitor your XP per hour. So it will tell you, obviously, I'm level 60, so it's irrelevant here, but it will let you know your XP per hour, your XP per session, how much experience you're getting during that dungeon farm, how much experience, hopefully you're not doing that, how much experience you're getting in that questing area per hour. So you'll know if you're slowing down, and it will also let you know your time to level, right? How long it's going to take you at this pace to level to the next level, so you can schedule out and manage your time a lot more efficiently. The other add-on I'm going to recommend, which you probably heard of, I don't need to really talk about too much, is called Questy. This is all available on the Twitch client or the Curse app. You can download them online if you'd like as well. This add-on will let you know where your turn-in points are, what quests are available to you in the open world. So if you're like, man, I'm out of quests, where do I go next? You can see, oh, there's a ton of quests for me over in this area. I'll go check it out. It will also let you know if you're killing the corresponding quest mob. So, hey, like I need to go kill these guys up here. And it will let you know when you target the mob if it corresponds with your quest as well. So these 2 add-ons I think are pretty huge. There's a ton of other add-ons out there. Maybe I'll make a video in the future, but I think these ones are ones that you should pick up when trying to level along the way. Now, the next tip I'm going to recommend is making sure that you have the optimal solo leveling spec. Although you might have an AoE spec, and that's great if you are going to be AoE farming if you're a mage, this primarily only applies to mages. Make sure that you have the optimal leveling spec, because it's going to be ass trying to level with a spec that is not optimal for solo farming or solo leveling. So as a warlock, I have something like Affliction and Demonology. Right now, I'm playing SM Ruin, which is my rating spec, but you want to have a spec that is optimal for leveling, and you do not want to respec all the time while leveling, because it costs a lot of gold, and that's gold that you can apply towards your professions or your mount, or even your epic mount when you reach level 60. So make sure that you have the optimal leveling spec. There are a ton of guides on Wowhead Classic Wowhead that I will link in the info box below. Check out your class, read a little bit about it, understand your rotation, but ultimately make sure you have the right leveling spec, because it will make a massive difference, especially in solo content. And the final tip for today's video is, when you are close to level 60, make sure you are farming your pre-raid bis. What does pre-raid bis mean? It essentially means the gear that you want to have to perform at an optimal level when entering any type of raid content or any sort of raid content. So you want to make sure that when you're getting close to level 60, you start working on this. The grind is essentially, well, it never really ends in this game, I would say, but the grind is essentially over when you get close to level 60. So when you're at 57, 58, take the foot off the gas and start focusing on knocking out some of the items that you're going to need, because while doing the dungeons, while grinding to 60, you're already going to be knocking out some of the gear that you're going to need anyway, that you're going to have to farm for at 60. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I went straight to 60, and then I started farming gear, but now I have to go back and farm a lot of the gear that I needed in the first place. So just don't worry about like getting to 60. Assume that you've already gotten to 60 when you're on 58, and go through your pre-raid bis. Download Atlas Loot, see what loot drops off different dungeons that you're going to need. Again, Wowhead has a list for your class. Each class has a page on Wowhead that will tell you all of the loot that is available to you in the current phase that you should be trying to go after or acquire for your pre-raid bis. And it also has stuff on professions. I'll probably throw that in there in the profession section of the video, where you can go after and how to effectively or efficiently farm your professions. So I probably have some bags under my eyes because I've been playing this game nonstop, but those are my tips for you. Those are the things that I would recommend you guys avoid based on the mistakes that I made. If you're not making any of these mistakes, that's great. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below on what you think you should avoid when leveling to 60 or trying to rush to 60. The term rush to 60 isn't for everybody, I know that, but if you are trying to level to 60, you can do it at a moderately fast pace without missing a huge portion of the game. And once the most important tip is just do not dungeon farm. I highly just don't recommend that at all. But that is today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. If you have any more questions, you can also let me know in the comment section below. You can also find me on my Twitch live stream if you have any questions there. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.